The first exercise was about drawing squares in 1 point perspective. And what I saw for most people are more than 1 points. Technically, you can have multiple points around a horizon line, but for the sake of this, what I was looking for was a single vanishing point, meaning all lines go to this point, and it represents optically the point from which your station point, where you're standing as a person looking, and where everything recedes back to in space. So, I mean, some people do have multiple vanishing points, but that also usually refers to multiple levels. And I won't get into all the details of that today, but I did give you a lot of resources and links to readings that can help walk through all of this. Because when I was in school, I learned sight measuring, and I learned a little bit of this. So most of what I am showing you, I had to teach myself over the years. So in some ways, I know I wasn't exactly going through everything for the demos this week for you, having you guys do a lot of readings or copying and things like that, because I always found for me that that was how I learned, was that I went through, tried things step by step, see if it worked or not. And for the most part, from what I've seen from people's work, that's what I'm seeing. So what I wanted to see was multiple cubes or rectangular prisms. You didn't have to have them tilted in any way. The only time you use 1 point perspective is really if there's some facing you. If you have something looking at you at an angle, that's when you do start to use multiple vanishing points. I'm going to do several from different places, and this is kind of what I was looking for that assignment. So just a few really quick ones. All the sides and the angles of a cube go back in space. So usually I lay these lines in very lightly and then erase what I don't need later. Now for perfect cubes, I think it went into how to do perfectly receding cubes in like a gridded room. Basically, all verticals, usually you want to have perfectly vertical. Like if I were to draw something like this, you know, that doesn't look like a cube because that's at a different angle. It almost makes this look trapezoidal on the side if we were to pick this up and move it around. So make sure that stays completely vertical for this purpose. Of course, you can end up rotating it. And actually, let me try that just to show you what that looks like. So if I were to do another diamond shape instead of another kind of cube, you want to kind of meet up with all the different points that are visible. So with something like this, where it is at an angle, it still goes back to the vanishing point, but it's so thin because we only see like a little bit of the plane. And actually, that probably, we should actually be seeing the top of the plane a little bit. Oops. So it does pay to be precise. I guess because it was at an angle. In this instance, I am kind of eyeballing cubes or rectangles in space. There's a way by using the ground to figure out how to get back there. That's initially what I've been hoping for. And then if you had time, you could go back and erase that. Now ellipses, a little different. I'm gonna just do 1 point perspective here. I can do 2 point perspective. So 2 point perspective is always going to recede back to these 2 points. And closer together they are, the more extreme or squished things seem to become. A lot of times if I want something naturalistic, my vanishing points are actually like off the page and it has something more like we would see in the real world. Okay, if I were to just do ellipses here, to figure out a circle, it's best to find the center. And if you don't know what the center is, you're not going to find the center of where the circle interacts with here. So to do that, I draw a line across from one corner to the other. And then from this point, if I make it parallel, that's where we know the points for the circle. So I do draw this in. And then by knowing that, I might start by doing a slight curve here and then trying to my best to make a circle. You might not get it right away, but I expect you to take the time and try to get it. So if it doesn't look right, you know, keep going, go back, refine it. Maybe start with a light pencil, and then once you get it there, go back. Now, same thing with something like this. You know, find, especially with something receding back in space, you know, find the center. Because as something recedes back in space, you know, the distance begins to squish a little bit. So you can't just find the square going halfway back this way. And then this goes back at an angle towards the vanishing point. So I could use the vanishing point and go back. So this is where the top of that circle is supposed to go. So it is more of an ellipse. So I think looking at it looked like some of you understood it part way, but maybe weren't taking the time to do the ellipse. And I didn't see a lot of this in everybody's work. So to me, it just told me that maybe people were just eyeballing and guessing at it, which I think part of this is figuring out that you don't have to guess. You can use some of this. So remember, all verticals stay vertical, but what does change are anything receding back in space. So if anything going back away from you relates to the vanishing point. So from here, I find that point, finish that, and then from here, you know, it's hard to guess. So you just kind of have to like try to distort it as best you can and try to, so it might not be perfect right away. So it takes practice, but that should give you a better head start by knowing that you can use that. Like that looks a little off a little. It's a lot more accurate. The big thing I want people to see from this is to understand, so the horizon line represents where your eye line usually is. Like if you look straight out into space, I think a big thing to note is like vantage point. If you're looking down at something, you usually see the top of it. If you're looking up at something, you can see underneath it. But the closer something is to the horizon line, the less you're going to see, the more extreme the angle of the planes of the cube or the cylinder or whatever it is that you're looking at. So if you're looking at a cup, you know, something elliptical, so maybe I'll draw, this kind of looks cube-like, then I'll take a vertical straight across here, 90 degrees. And actually that's probably not 90, it's actually pretty thin. So like I barely see any of the bottom of this cube. So that gives me the center point of that solid. Maybe it's not a perfect square, but it gives me the center of whatever solid or rectangle it is. Here you go. So if you wanted to make something like a column in space, kind of want to just start here, end here. Every corner recedes back to the same vanishing point. My column is going to be like this deep. I'll carry it up this way. Not that you guys have to do a column, but what I want to show is, okay, so once this meets this line, take it straight across, and that gives you the front and the back plane. And technically you can't, this is so high up, you actually don't see this. So okay, that was a rectangle, but if I then want to make a column, you know, that's round. You find the center, the receding line recedes back to this vanishing point. Take this perfectly horizontal. Now do that up here. So this is a little bit more extreme because it's not as low as that one. This isn't perfect, but then I can use these to draw these out. And then if I have this column, I can erase everything here. You'll take the outermost point of that ellipsis, find the outermost point up here, and it should connect. Do the same here. And then if you wanted to hide This is all kind of construction lines, telling you where to put your lines and how to make a column that's convincing in perspective. So then you can kind of go back over this, go back, oops, over where the circle is. So you might have to go back and adjust. So keep using vanishing points as you work. Experiment with ellipses, maybe columns or cylinders, and good luck.